Got a great project that we want to talk to you about tonight, but of course we got to check in with the craziness of this election.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Did you actually ever think that we'd be having a Miss Venezuela in the middle of the race at this point? I mean, this thing is, and allegations that Donald is all coked up. It's just, it's crazy. Welcome in. Nice to have you aboard. We got a couple of guys here tonight that might be asking you for a little bit of support for a project that is getting a lot of good reviews. In fact, an endorsement by Google, which I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I just found out seconds before the broadcast, and Kenneth will tell you all about that. Welcome in. Thanks for joining us on My State of Mind tonight on this Wednesday. Let's go to the rundown and check on a couple of things with the race itself. Some headlines are getting funner and funner. Well, I guess it'd be more fun and more fun would be the proper English. Trump says he may hit harder in the next debate. Well, gee, Donald, don't wait for us. Clinton says she had a great time. Well, she obviously won the debate, unless, of course, you're scoring on the handicap system that Donald Trump uses. Trump really wants you to know that he won the debate. And he ran all over Kingdom Come last night trying to explain to everybody about all the online polling. We'll talk about that in a second. And then you got this woman who did the dastardly thing of gaining 12 pounds after she was named Miss Universe. Boy, they ought to put her in jail for that. Here's the wrap-up.
Donald Trump rallied supporters in Melbourne, Florida, insisting he was the big winner in Monday's debate with Hillary Clinton.
For 90 minutes, I watched her very carefully, and I was also holding back. I didn't want to do anything to embarrass her.
A big moment on the debate stage was when Clinton argued Trump embarrassed Miss Universe 1996.
He called this woman Miss Piggy. Donald, she has a name.
Where did you find
her
this?
name
Where
is
did you find
Aiyah
this?
Machado.
Trump tried to explain his comments about the former Venezuelan beauty queen on Fox.
She gained a massive amount of weight, and it was a real problem.
Tuesday, Aiyah Machado told reporters she was devastated.
For me, these elections are like a bad dream. You know, watching this guy again doing a stupid things and a stupid comment.
With only 6 weeks to Election Day, polls show the race is a virtual tie. Hillary Clinton campaigned in North Carolina with a spring in her step.
Did anybody see that debate last night?
She announced she will team up with former rival Bernie Sanders to make college debt-free.
We're also going to work so that you can refinance the debt you already have at much lower rates.
Both candidates will continue to focus on key battleground states that could decide the next president.
You know, it's dawned on me after thinking about this for a couple of days what kind of a coward bully Donald Trump really is. You know, when, listen, I'm no fan of Hillary Clinton's. I mean, if I end up voting for Hillary Clinton, it will be like the 7th or 8th wonder of the world. We have 7, right? So this will be the 8th. It all depends on where we get a viable libertarian candidate to actually show up here, and that may not be the case. So we're all in a difficult boat. But the idea that he's going to get tough in the next one, and didn't get tough in the last one, but runs around to his minions, you know, in the airport hangar, bad-mouthing her and calling her, you know, corrupt Hillary. Why did he call her corrupt Hillary on the stage? You know, this is the classic passive-aggressive behavior of somebody who doesn't know how to deal with people and who's never been challenged. This next month ought to be revealing, and even those of you who really think this guy is the change agent you want, I suggest that you do a little bit more homework on him. In fact, the Frontline documentary that's out by PBS right now is a must-view. It chronicles both Hillary and Donald in terms of where they have come from and where they are right now. If you don't wince like 12 times over his hyperbole, his lack of credibility, and all those kinds of things, I think, I just don't think you're checking in. Change agency could come at a really, really, really difficult cost for this country. In the meantime, this sycophant has lost his mind, no doubt about it. I guess this is one way to throw a career away. The kind of dance that Sean Hannity is doing with Donald Trump is world record breaking. Now, the idea that these online polls are actually credible, like the Drudge Report had him winning 80-20. A lot of people who are conservative read the Drudge Report. Me too. A lot of nuts read the Drudge Report. Maybe me too. But the idea here is that that's an advocacy poll. That's got nothing to do with random sampling. the kind of things that real polls do. But Donald Trump wouldn't know that.
Almost every single poll had us winning the debate against crooked Hillary Clinton. Big league. Big league.
The only thing that actually is giving Donald Trump a chance at some empathy is this idiot. It just doesn't stop. Howard Dean using the Coke thing and doubling down on it last night on network television, asking questions about, you know, the sniffling that went on in a microphone that was obviously unidirectional and picking up just about every breath that Donald Trump took. You know, Donald Trump may be a lot of things, but reportedly he doesn't even drink. So why would he be a cokehead? Wish everybody would just calm down a little bit and talk some policy. In the meantime, maybe I can get some of that from my fine guests. Here's an excerpt of a little bit of video that I think you would find interesting that helps to introduce them.
There's a sense of power that you feel and you get when somebody gives you a gun, and it's addicting. And it's difficult to let go of because in that moment, that's everything people work for in the inner city, that respect, that fear.
That's you, right, Kenneth?
That is me.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to have you. Kenneth Chabert is a storyteller and a collector and a what master?
Prezi Master.
Which means?
Means that I am one of 25 experts in a program called Prezi.
And you'll explain that to us.
So Prezi is a more sophisticated version of PowerPoint. Instead of having stagnated slides, you have a canvas, and you can move through the canvas connecting text, images, and video.
Okay.
It's a lot more engaging than, you know, typical PowerPoint.
All right, typical me. I don't know the latest communication technology. I'm only in the communications business.
It is the PowerPoint of our age.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Your age, not mine? Okay, well, I deserve that one. Aiyah Josiah Fadeuwor is also my guest, Director of Operations for OIC of RI. That's a lot of letters. What is OIC?
Yes, it is, and breaking it down is to make it easier. It's the Opportunities Industrialization Center of Rhode Island.
Nice.
Essentially, we support the urban community, particularly those who are unemployed, oftentimes uneducated, and living in poverty, with getting the skills and training they need to be able to pursue their careers.
All right, cool. I didn't bring you on to talk about the national election, but since I just spent 5 or 6 minutes chatting about it, you have a thought on it?
No comment.
No comment. You're allowed to do that.
Oh yeah, I'm free to do that. Well, I think it's interesting.
You didn't even take a breath.
I think it's interesting.
I practiced.
And I think the biggest thing, especially working within the community, is about education and people knowing, you know, what their options are. I think, as you mentioned, the libertarian potential candidates, you know, if individuals, you know, knew about the options they had leading up to the election and were able to really consider all the possible options, we may not have been here. But here's where we are, and I think people have to definitely make a decision. I, for one, know the type of country I want to live in, and I definitely don't want that man being the leader of our country as I'm growing up and as I'm trying to change and make change happen under leadership like that.
All right, you're working with a lot of young people.
Correct.
Are people, you know, without endorsing or talking about a specific candidate, are they engaging in this race?
Not as much as I want them to be engaged, but.
So I actually have found, and I almost, you know, envy some of the youth that I work with on how aware they are. I think this election just has happened to get the center stage in ways that when I was coming through school, it wasn't really subject of conversation. So I've actually found a lot of youth very aware of what's going on and have very strong opinions on where they stand. I was talking to a student on one of my Facebook comments about like voting, and I kind of took a slight at her and said, do you even know where your voting poll is? But they're engaged and they're aware.
You have a project. It's called the Gentleman's Retreat Mission, just endorsed by Google, which means?
That means that the chief education evangelist endorsed the program, said he liked it, and you know that opens up a relationship in the future. So.
Which enables you to do?
Internships, any type of work that we need to do as far as developing the inner city. Because the program is really all about taking inner city kids and introducing them to this idea called the gentleman, right? So a gentleman is sophisticated and educated and carries themselves in a certain way, and it's still tough, but we're talking about being mentally tough. And so there's an issue in the inner city where if they can't be physical or pick up a gun, they don't know how to handle the situation, right? Because that's the go-to. And so what my program is trying to do is make that transition into the real world a lot easier, where they know how to have conversational intelligence and emotional intelligence.
I understand you've been there, done that when it comes to reaching for a gun, correct?
Right.
All right, so we'll tell that story and develop this a little bit more when we come back. And by the way, this project in November that they're working on could use some of your support, so stay tuned for a note on that. In the meantime, I just want to tell you about my friends at Cumberland Kitchen and Bath Design Center. They ask you one more time to take a look at their website for the before and after photos that are proof positive that what you have can be a whole lot better. I know because my project came in on budget and on time with the kitchen renovation that they did months ago, and I'm still talking about it every day. Not only because they asked me to, but because I'm proud of their work. You will be too. Check them out at CumberlandKitchen.com or stop in on Mendon Road in Cumberland. Cumberland Kitchen Bath. You won't be unhappy with your choice. Be right back. All right, there's a little bit of a B-roll, as we call it in the television business, for the website for the Gentleman's Retreat, which is coming, as I understand, is coming to Providence in November, correct?
November 11th to the 13th.
What is the Gentleman's Retreat?
So the Gentleman's Retreat is all about teaching inner city kids the art of being gentlemen through the use of emotional, conversational, and storytelling intelligence. So in the inner city, you have this addiction to the word gangster and the letter G. That is the epitome of success. And so what I'm telling these kids is that they can still be a G, but the G no longer represents a gangster, it represents a gentleman. And so like I said, that's somebody who's sophisticated and educated and carries themselves in a certain way, and is still tough, because toughness is very important in the inner city, but we're talking about being mentally tough. So they're gonna come out to Providence, and it's basically 3 days
Come out to Providence from the Bronx?
From the Bronx,
area?
correct.
Okay.
And it's
You're a Bronx guy?
I'm from the Bronx.
You grew up in the Bronx?
I did.
What section?
South Bronx.
Okay.
Yeah.
The real Bronx?
The real Bronx.
Absolutely.
It's part of the Bronx, actually.
Yeah. My family's from, Pelham Bay. It's really not the Bronx. It is the Bronx.
That's Bronx.
It's the Bronx.
I've been there a few
Throgs
times.
Neck. Yeah. It's a very different Bronx. But I get it. And you're from Dorchester.
I'm from Dorchester.
Which is
very much so.
which is also its own tough town, as people would say, correct?
Yeah, still is in a lot of ways.
It's kind of like a Red Sox-Yankee rivalry. Two of the toughest neighborhoods in the urban core, right there. A lot of common ground between your upbringing, right?
Yeah.
Both you guys were not the gentlemen that you are today early on.
Yeah.
True?
I mean, I had a lot of, my father was a big role model in my life. He came from Sierra Leone in the 70s, and to pursue education, he was 18 at the time, and went to school until he was about 29. So when I was born, it was like he was still a student. So I very much grew up understanding that, like, you can be an intellectual, you can enjoy education, you can be passionate about that. But I also grew up in Dorchester, so I came home to a very structured environment, but also had to make friends and be cool. I didn't have to, but it just came naturally. Right. So I had those two aspects of my life, and so I kind of navigated that always. Kind of.
And I agree with Aiyah, same thing. I had great parents, and my household was very structured, and I went to school and I did really well in school, but it was the environment outside, right? And so I had to survive in that environment. And so what happens is, and I think between Aiyah and I, we represent a demographic that nobody really knows about. When you think about the inner city, you think about the gangster who's there, and then somebody that gets out. But Aiyah and I, we represent the demographic where it's somebody who does really well in school, but still might have to carry a gun to get to school and back home safely. And so that's the demographic that my program is targeting, because that demographic exists in the inner city.
Yeah. So good kids who have to do some bad things in order to survive.
I mean, I wouldn't call it bad things, because this is what they have to do to survive. And so the program...
Well, that's a horrifying concept. Are you telling me that a lot of inner city kids are packing simply because they have to?
Well, I think it's a little bit more complex than that. I think that the environment, for my example, I had my dad who's been to school and who's well educated. I have two older brothers, both who were in and out of the prison system by the time I had even graduated from high school. And one who's still serving 2 life sentences. So a lot of it is the choices, right? So no one really in those situations has to, right? Like there is choice in the matter, but a lot of it depends on kind of what messages you receive. So in school, I was really praised a lot. Even just before I even put my pen to a paper and answer questions, maybe my demeanor, maybe something about me. Whereas my brothers were oftentimes easily targeted and told, hey, stop joking in class, you're being a class clown. So they were funny. And what could have morphed into a career as a comedian in school was kind of put down. Right. I was kind of quiet. And until I actually realized, oh, I kind of get math and all of that, and I became a smart person. But even early on, the choices you make are based on kind of how society responds to you. And if you don't know how to navigate that, which is why I think the Gentleman's Retreat is amazing, because it teaches students at an early age, you have a choice in this matter.
Right.
And here goes some tools to take option B, where you may normally or feel coerced to take the option A route.
Right, and there's always a duality. You have the duality between getting an education and then also trying to survive in the inner city. So there's always these choices that you have to make. And so I'm not saying every kid in the inner city carries a gun, but there's situations where they face that duality. Yeah. And so that's the challenge, is what do you do?
How do you draw them out in terms of what the truth is about how they're comporting themselves?
And that's what the program is about, right? It's about taking them out of that environment and stimulating them and showing them that there's different ways of life. When you grow up in the inner city, I feel that you get caught up in that environment and you think that that's the world, that everywhere you go to exists in that same space, but it doesn't. When you come out to Providence, it's a completely different demographic. There's different things that you're exposed to. And so what it causes is something called cognitive dissonance. So these kids and these youth, what they do is they start to reflect on what goes on back home in that neighborhood and then what's going on here. And then they make different choices to reflect what they want the outcome to be.
Yeah.
And you tell stories.
Yeah, I do tell stories.
Maybe you'll tell us one. We'll pause. I've got some other questions. Stay with us. So the Gentleman's Retreat, we have information on how people can get involved in that. Where, Lexi? On the website? On the website at foxprovidence.com. Please check the website at foxprovidence.com, and you can learn how you could make some financial contribution to this Gentleman's Retreat, which is coming to Providence in November on a certain date.
November 11th to the 13th.
You need help real quick. How? I mean, you just
funding. I'm trying to get internships for the kids too, because I want to extend it into the summer so they can stay outside of the Bronx for the entire summer, have housing, have internships, and like I said, develop those different competencies.
Kids ages what to what are part of this Gentleman's Retreat that you should learn about? What is it? How old are they? The kids you're dealing with?
So the kids are anywhere between 14 and 16, so they are sophomores and juniors.
Okay.
And so one of the...
So they're right there, man. 14 to 16 is where the whole enchilada lies, right?
Right. And so the main thing is about, giving them these experiences, because I want them, or at least I want one of the byproducts to be an essay that isn't cliche, where they're talking about they want to go to college because they come from a deprived neighborhood or lack of opportunities. I want them to talk about the Gentleman's Retreat, how they had 2.5 years of emotional, conversational, storytelling intelligence, how they met different thought leaders, and now, because they've gained these competencies and these experiences, they don't need the school, but the school needs them, right? Because we have to change that language.
Okay, so I'm fascinated by the storytelling aspect. A story that you would tell lasts a minute, an hour, 2 days, what?
It depends on what you're using the story for. Typically, when I work with my clients, there's a belief, there's a story, and then there's a happy ending. And so the belief is what you believe. It's a piece of vulnerability, right? The story backs up that belief, and then the happy ending is what basically closes the deal. So I grew up in an environment where there was no verbal communication, right? So communication has always been important to me because...
Because what? Who did speak to who? What do you mean?
Well, when you grow up in the inner city, you typically don't have conversations back and forth. Most of it is physical, right? So I learned at an early age that if I wanted to get out of that environment, I had to learn how to verbally communicate.
Well, back to you on that. You commiserate with that?
Well, yeah, I think that's a reality of the experience, where a lot of your options are, okay, I can confront this in a very intellectualized way, a very, again, it goes to that you have option A, you have option B. And so if you don't have the tools to take option B, like, how can I combat this person who's disagreeing with me in this debate way? Right. If I can't do that, I don't know how to do that, I'm gonna just go ahead and resolve.
You're dealing with men,
A.
young men mostly?
Young men, yes.
Yeah. Well, men don't. I don't. Even those in the most beneficial environment, men don't speak to each other much anyway. I mean, they kind of grunt at each other a lot, or good shot. I mean, there's. My point is that I don't know that it's necessarily an inner city challenge exclusively. It might be hyperbolized or magnified, the lack of verbal communication. But in general, males aren't very communicative from the onset. That's an acquired trait, skill, growth. You came a long way, right? Yeah. But generally, they're not as conversant as women and young girls are anyway. So you're teaching them. a really
I mean, I beg to
important
differ
skill.
because, you know, the men that I've met.
You can't disagree with me on this show.
I mean, we're having a conversation now.
Yeah.
And so I think that, you know, that takes a lot of energy.
You're
and that takes
evolved.
A lot of, right.
You've had a life experience and you've come a long way.
Right. So now if you go to the inner city and you try to have that conversation, I don't think that you're going to last that long because that conversation doesn't exist because we're not taught how to communicate. Right. So
I think
you're
we're
right.
actually agreeing.
Yeah, I think you both are, and I think one thing that's important is that the difference is that even though all men or people in general may have these type of exchanges, and that may be, you know, or lack of exchanges that may happen, but what happens in the inner city and what happens in urban communities, especially with young men of color, when they have those conversations or don't have those conversations and thus have those altercations, what happens because of that tends to be a lot worse for young men of color in urban communities. So if we don't talk and I say, I'm really not into this guy, whatever, we may just go our separate ways and go into our different areas and networks. But in the urban communities, that may lead to joining gangs, that may lead to physical altercation, that could lead to other outcomes.
Well, you know, I'd have you back. I want to have you back before November because I think this is a great conversation. I'd like to have you on the radio too to expand on what you're working on. But this is yet another example of what is not getting a lot of attention in our communities. The good work that's being done on the ground and the media's general reliance, I think, lazily on politicians and everyday leadership that gets all too much attention where there's actually some incredible work going on the ground. The kind of leadership that you're providing and growing is organically productive. So that's a good thing. There's just not a lot of attention being drawn to this kind of project work, and we've had more and more folks on this show over the last couple of years making this audience and me feel better about what's going on out there, right? Yes?
Yeah, so would you say it has a good amount of depth, both of the work that we're
Well, yeah,
doing?
it seems to me that we've only scratched the surface of what you do.
So it seems like even us as millennials particularly have this vertical ability and horizontal. So I'm really glad that you commend us for that. And
we
really
are
appreciate you
Aiyah
saying that.
Aiyah came in
we love you though.
Let's put it this way. That's like an inside joke from another show. But the truth of the matter is that millennials are horizontal and not very vertical. They don't go very deep, but you guys are doing some deep work.
Well, few exceptions now. That's the fourth exception
you know,
you've had.
when you make a generalization, you leave yourself open for exceptionalism here, and that's obviously what we've got. Make sure you go to the website, foxprovidence.com, and learn a little bit more about what this project is all about. I'd like to have you guys back to expand on it a little bit and come on the radio as well. Sounds like terrific work. And you got to tell a story. You'll tell a story on the radio for me.
All right, sounds good.
Does that make sense? Because you won't be able to use your, what's it called? The
Prezi?
The Prezi?
I can do it without Prezi.
You can do it without Prezi?
Of course.
All right, you can do it the old-fashioned way?
I can.
All right.
Your way.
It's good to meet you guys.
Honor.
These guys are after me. We'll be right back. Hey, listen, we didn't make mention last night, better late than never. Arnold Palmer passing is a heartbreak, I think, for America in general. His work outside his incredible, heroic golf career was larger than life, and he will be sorely missed. They broke the mold, no doubt, with Arnold Palmer. Godspeed there. In the middle of the Ryder Cup week, which is especially poignant, no doubt. Body cameras for police officers in Providence. The Chief of Police, Hugh Clemens, will be my guest to talk about that tomorrow night. We'll see you on the radio at 3 on WPRO. Thanks for watching.